Association. Association chat will get started in just a second. But before that, let's hear from Blake Allison at Human Factor for this episode's podcast tip.
Thanks, Kiki. One thing associations ask me is what should we talk about on our podcast? One way I answer this is to call on the ghosts of association Christmas past, present, and future. 1. The Ghost of Association Podcast Past. This is where the old saying, those who don't know their history are damned to repeat it, is crucial. Hearing tales of what worked for successful people and organizations in the past is always of interest. And industry vets are always full of great tales of the good old days. 2. The association goes to podcast present. What is happening right now is happening right now and is affecting your members. There's nothing more crucial than delivering the audience up-to-date and accurate industry news in an easy-to-consume podcast. Who just did what successfully right now? How'd they do it? 3. The Ghost of Association Podcast Future. I don't think there's anybody in any field anywhere that would not like have at least a glimpse into the future, and talking about where the industry is heading always makes for great content. Unlike Scrooge, the associations have a newsletter that usually contains all sorts of topics to chat about on the podcast. But if your organization doesn't have a newsletter, or even if it does, this is a great opportunity to do some crowdsourcing. Now you have a great excuse to contact your members and ask them about their concerns, and who they'd like to learn it from. You can also contact industry experts and let them know that your members would love to hear from them. So don't be a Scrooge and go make some podcasts. For more information about association podcasts, tips and tricks, go to humanfactor.net.
This episode of Association Chat is sponsored by Fontiva at fontiva.com. Go check them out.
Welcome to Association Chat, produced by Amplified Growth and Human Factor, talking about all things association, nonprofit, and anything else that pops into my mom's head. And now, here is your host, Kiki L'Italian.
All right.
Show, Mom.
I love hearing her voice. It just thrills me.
Show, Mom.
She said it
Good
again.
luck on the show, Mom.
Blake,
Hi.
what's going on with this?
Oh, we got tons. She came in earlier and
I
gave
know.
me a ton.
What
Hey,
is
Mom,
going?
can we go to Hot Topic when you get home?
You're having way too much fun with this.
I am. What is
Yeah.
this? We're at Association Chat.
I know. We're on Association Chat, and I am so excited today because we are talking about something that I think actually everybody's excited about finding out more about.
What?
About, and that's to become more successful. Do you want to be more successful, Blake?
Most of the time.
Not all the time.
Not all the time.
I want to be more successful, but what does success mean? There are...
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I mean, truly, for different people, it's different things. But if we measure it by, like, say, what are the most influential people do? Who, the top 1%, what are they doing that's different from the rest of us? Do you have ideas?
No. I've hung out with 1%ers a few times, as we talked about before we went on.
We did. You have some
I can drop
really
some
good
names that
stories.
I'm not going to do right now.
Yeah. So we're talking today about the real truth about success. And we're talking about what the most influential people do differently than what someone like you, Blake, or like I do. I mean,
We're
what
not
is
influencers?
it? I mean, and I'm not saying that you're not successful. I'm just saying that there's probably something that
We
we
have room
can
for
learn.
improvement.
There's room for improvement.
Right.
And our guest for this show is the man who knows all about it. He's done the research and he's written the book. Our guest for the show is Garrison Wynn. And Garrison is, yes, applause. He is the keynote speaker and author of the Amazon bestseller, The Real Truth About Success. It was Amazon #1 bestseller. The Cowbell Principle is another book that he wrote.
I got to have more cowbell.
I gotta have more cowbell, and I can't believe we don't have the sound effect for that.
Bells.
That doesn't count. So I want to welcome you, Garrison. This is kind of crazy. Welcome to Association Chat.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Kiki. Thank you.
So I think that if we jump into talking a little bit about the book and talking about what the top 1% do differently and why they won't tell you and how you can do it anyway. My first question is, why is it that the top 1% won't tell us? Why is it that, is it a conspiracy, Garrison? What's going on?
No, it's not. It could be, but what it really is, it might be. What it really is that it wasn't cool or sexy enough. It didn't sound good. It didn't paint them in a light that made them seem clever or interesting. It wasn't it wasn't what you think it is. And so a lot of people when they're on a show talking about their success, they tell you where they are now and all these cool things. That's how they really got there. What really pushed them over the edge or really moved them up the ladder. So yeah, it's just stuff people don't talk. It's what your PR person says, don't say.
And they're like coaching you to sound better and sexier and smarter.
Right.
And so, yeah.
Cool.
So I want to find out what it is that they're holding on to. I mean, because actually that actually takes a little bit of pressure off. If it's something that isn't that weird thing that's out there that seems so out of reach, it's probably something that's a little bit more tangible for people like you and me. And so what did you find out? What's probably, one of those secrets that maybe not something that we would expect?
Well, the answer, the best way to say this is we interviewed 5,371 people over 10 years. And we looked at that. They were picked because they could drive the culture forward. They were successful. They were influential. That's why we picked the companies and found the people in those companies. Some people were well known, some people not. Then we looked at the top 1%. Gallup gave us some help at that point. We bit off more we could chew, and Gallup helped us out. Looked at the top 1% and kind of looked at all the stuff and kind of went through the data. What we came up with, what they had in common, was they took advantage of their advantages. They took advantage of their advantages. Almost everyone has an advantage. They may not know what it is, but they actually capitalized on that advantage. And a lot of people have things around them that absolutely would make them successful. For one reason or another, they don't choose to actually go in that direction. Believe it or not, they choose something that makes them look better, choose something that feels better. People don't choose what's best. They choose what they're comfortable with, whether it's the best or not. If there was one definable best, everybody would choose that. Nothing else would be considered. Decision-making is work that way.
So what are some of the examples that you found? Advantages like what?
Well, one example, there was a guy, a salesperson, industrial salesperson, who was number one in the world in a business where people made $80,000 a year. He made 15 and 20 million. He was by far the most successful person on the planet in this industry. And we talked to him on the phone after the initial interview. And what he said, because you can't see me, we didn't really have a picture of this guy. He said, well, I'm about 6'5" and 400 pounds. I'm almost the biggest person that anyone's ever had in their office. And no one ever forgets me. No matter what I do or where I go to China, I go to London, wherever I go around the world, everybody remembers me.
Well,
and I went, okay, that's interesting. That doesn't sound very cool or impressive. He goes, yeah, I wear these custom bright colored shirts. When I go to the conference, they can see me from across the exhibit hall. Everybody knows me. Everybody sees me. I am memorable. I am unforgettable. Yes. And I use that to my advantage. And then he said, I have a brother who's just like me exactly. And he thinks his disadvantage is he's too big.
Huh.
And we started to see a pattern with people who were successful. What we found out was that quite often what you believe your actual disadvantage is the one thing you can use to drive yourself forward.
My gosh. So I agree with that so much because I have to say, okay, look at it.
I'm looking.
The hashtag Allison chat for association chat.
It's up on the screen right now.
It's memorable. It's so memorable, and people never forget. It sounds pornographic, but it's the most popularly used association hashtag out there. And then my name, Kiki L'Italienne. I mean, that has to be fabricated. People they'll say, "I've seen your name," before and they'll remember seeing my name. You don't remember.
Did you like being a Kiki as a little girl?
I didn't.
No, I didn't like being a Blake.
I hated being Kiki as a little girl.
And you know what else I hated?
Because it was weird.
I hated having curly hair.
Did you?
Yeah.
And did people remember you for it?
When I saw your name, Kiki, I thought I actually eaten that in a restaurant in Maui.
You didn't think it was a porn star?
Oh, Blake,
right?
Did you go? Listen, I feel like with Santa Hat, like it's a totally different season.
It's a different scene.
Not that it would ever be okay, but I choose if we're going down that path. I choose to believe burlesque.
All right,
dancer.
you can do burlesque. I don't have music for that.
It classes it up a little bit.
Well, I'm not. I've got two jokes I won't use.
You can use them.
I've got two.
He knows better. He knows better.
I'm not getting
I
dragged
don't have a
down
laugh
that
track
path.
ready, just clapping.
Well, and so another hint about people who are successful, he's going to tell us, is that they avoid jokes like the ones that we're telling. Okay?
Really?
So,
Why?
yes,
We can't tell jokes?
Well, no, there's some very interesting paths, that seem fantastic and they look really cool. When you go down them, you regret them. So you look for the little path. A lot of successful people, is what they didn't do. And it's also what they didn't buy into or didn't believe. I thought it was interesting. You start talking to a really successful person about potential. They're like, potential? What are you talking about? Isn't potential what someone says when they fail? Yeah, he had potential. Isn't potential like what we say about someone who couldn't do it? They had potential. Why would I think in those terms? Who cares? You either can do it or you can't do it, or you're willing to do it or you're not willing to do it. But potential is the word. It's a label for losers.
Wow.
I've got potential. That's what.
Yeah, because you don't want to have potential. You want to be the one who did it. Who can do it.
So we can't tell jokes, though? I don't understand.
What? Yeah, we can't tell jokes. You're done. You're done, Blake.
Right. So, but the thing is, you might potentially suck, and that's the,
you
that's
might
the
potentially
thing. You might
suck.
potentially be
Okay.
terrible.
So, okay, well, let's talk about it too, though, because you don't want to have the potential. You want to be the one who's actually doing it. What if you're somebody who feels like there's nothing really special about you? What if your name's not Kiki L'Italian, or you're not 6'5" and making it work for you?
Well, one of the things is you have to kind of be honest with yourself and ask yourself a question, and that is, what is the benefit you're getting from staying stuck? What benefit? What are you really getting from being stuck? And there's usually something, maybe to avoid the pain of growth. Maybe to avoid admitting that you've been wrong, maybe for the last 3 years. Maybe it's a situation by which you just feel that you don't really want to put the effort into it. What is the benefit for step one? What's the benefit for staying stuck?
Wow. And
it's a tough question. And it's the question that successful people ask themselves sometimes every year. So if I'm plateauing, if I'm not moving ahead, what is it? I mean, obviously, top performers, you've heard this before, they never stop getting better. They're always, they're always working on it. In the book, I say that that satisfaction may be the goal of the average person, but it's the enemy of greatness. Satisfaction is useless. You're going to move forward. And the question is, what is the benefit of staying stuck? So once you ask yourself that question, then you say, okay, well, wait a second. Am I willing to take a look at maybe a big weakness or a problem or an issue just to make sure that's not the thing? It's kind of interesting. I got in trouble growing up because I talked too much in class. And I was told that talking was going to absolutely derail my future.
And now you're paid to talk.
I've been talking for a living. I speak at 80 conventions a year for 23 years. 80, 90, 100. Sometimes I'm on the road speaking. That's what I earn a living doing. Yep. So that's very interesting. So it's quite often like our big successful guy that what some might believe to be a weakness was in fact.
Wow. So. I love it. So look, if you are not sure of what your strengths are, look to your weaknesses, because they might be hidden strengths right there, or at least those things that are making you different. I know that you, one of the things that you talked about in this book is you went into talking about the way that people who are influential leverage their relationships that's different from others. Can you talk a little bit about that? And maybe, because we're all going into these, that joke, networking is not working. And we go into our holiday parties and we're wondering, are we getting anything out of it? So,
well, networking's gotten better. I remember a long time ago where you went to the networking meeting and you met the person at 3 cards and they were doing nothing. Right? So it's kind of weird people who weren't going anywhere. But the thing is 2 things. Number one, are you willing to take advantage of the advantage that you have and leverage your relationships to the max? And a lot of people just won't do it. So in the book, we interviewed a lady. She was the number one residential real estate salesperson for years and years and years. We met her retired in her late 70s. And we said, okay, what was it? And she was talking about what she did. Like, no offense, lady, everybody does that. So she kept giving us this stuff. Now, a lot of people do that and they're not you. So clearly, no offense. What you say right before you offend somebody. No offense, but that's not it. And she finally said, well, I guess the turning point is that my husband was a CEO of a large corporation. And they had people moving all over the place all the time. And there was a list that the company had of who was moving and who was being transferred and where were they going. And her friend said, you can't do that. You can't view that list. That would be taking advantage. You're not even allowed to have that list. Well, she found out there was nothing that protected the list. At least back in those days, nothing.
Wow.
And she had to ask herself a question. Was she going to try to go be as successful as she could in whatever direction it was, or take advantage of the giant advantage that was in front of her? So she got the list. She hired 4 people to work the list, got real estate licenses in multiple states, and had a gigantic career from that list. And she ended up being known by other companies. If we're going to have our people transferred here, you want to talk to these people.
So she took that extra step where it was like a lot of people would have been turned away, just making assumptions that weren't necessarily true. She just kept going, and that was the thing that made the difference for her. Was that something that you kept running into in these stories?
Yeah, we run into a lot of where people would be in a situation where other people told them, well, we can't do that. You shouldn't do that. It's kind of the old-fashioned success story. Well, no one can do that. Well, why? Why not you? Why would it not be? Why would someone else be successful and it not be you? Why not you? Why would somebody down the road do something? People discover things all the time. They don't take advantage of it. I mean, Alexander Graham Bell didn't invent the telephone. He read the article of the guy who did and beat him to the patent office. Thomas Edison, his skill was landing big clients and, getting JP Morgan to write a check and making GE. Tesla did some cool stuff. We don't really know. The people that take the big actions and are willing to take those big steps, they're successful, even though they don't have the most talent all the time. They're not the smartest. That was an interesting thing we found, that of the 700 billionaires on the planet, only one is a genius IQ.
Wow.
And of 700 people in 17 cities that were randomly selected, the average number was 3, 4, and 5. The average person off the street was more likely to have an IQ 3 and 4 times more than a billionaire.
Oh my gosh.
I believe that.
Why?
Yep.
Because some of the most successful people I know, it's not that they're not smart, but they're not book smart. I won't name the place I worked, but the top 3 people in the company didn't even have college degrees. Didn't even have college degrees. They didn't have college degrees.
But that's very common. That's very common. Yes, it's real common for people at the very top to not have education. That includes Bill Gates, Michael Dell.
That's it. He's like really holding on to the hope that it's going to be okay.
I want to be successful, so I didn't go to college. Like Jobs, right?
There you are. So, so what about hope for us? So if we're trying to
hope for us,
yes, if we're looking at, a lot of people do a lot of planning this time of year. I just myself got my planner for 2019 where I fill out my goals, my visions. I have a friend that we do vision boards every year.
Do you do a sweat lodge and the whole thing?
I have not gone that far into doing this. Do you do this?
No, I don't do the Vision Quest.
I don't.
A Vision Quest. No, I really don't.
All right, so you have your.
So let's talk to Garrison and ask Garrison what
do you do?
Yeah,
what do you
talk
do?
to us about how.
Well, first of all, body odor was not in there. There was nobody that said I sweat a lot. My sweating got me to the top. I sweated my way to success. Nobody says that.
I know.
Why not though? Why not, Garrison? Why not be the first?
This is the one. How the 1% Sweat is the next book.
That's it.
It comes out. Yes.
Yeah, that's the next book.
It's coming out.
Right. And so as we're going into 2019, what are some things that we can do to sort of...
I was going to say, what is Garrison? Does he do all this? Do you do this planning like Kiki does?
I do. What I have an app on my phone these days, and but it's a good old fashioned goal list. I took a goal setting course way back in the 90s. It kind of changed my life. It was about, okay, well, what do I actually want? Like, what does success actually look like? Not the steps to get there. Let's not go there. What does success look like when I'm doing it? When I'm actually living a successful life? What does that actually look like? And I visualize living successfully. Then once I do that, I can kind of, okay, what goals get me there? That's for sure. And then, obviously you have a weekly list and a monthly task and all that. And I've got a cool app for that. And you can get that anywhere. But you have to ask yourself a question. Can you actually visualize yourself being successful and then know what that looks like first? A lot of people develop processes. And we found that, oddly enough, the people who are very process-oriented tended to work for the people who are the most successful. It seems that the geniuses and people who are extremely organized work for the action takers.
How about that? It's fascinating because I'm actually not necessarily surprised by that. I think that at times when I have, been focused so much on planning, it does make the actual implementation, the doing part of it.
I think it's a different part of your brain.
It is. And I think that, if you want to be that leader and you want to be influential, which I want to go into talking about that, in just a second.
Right.
I think that if you're going to do that, you have to, yes, planning is important, but boy, making stuff happen and actually living that, breathing it, doing the thing every day is such a big deal. So Garrison, like, how do we approach becoming more influential overall? I mean, that's definitely a big part of this, right?
Right. Well, I think the first thing is to be realistic about human behavior. The number one thing that all humans value is feeling valuable. And that's not a feel-good story or a theory, an opinion. That is the cumulative results of 70 years of Gallup surveys, 46 countries, 27 languages, what we actually really know about humans. And if you make people feel valuable, they'll value you and what you have to offer. As simple as that sounds, there are a lot of people that what they do in their rightness and in their genius and in their drive is they invalidate the people that they need to influence. And the best example of that is if I'm trying to explain something to someone who's in a very powerful position, who's been very successful, and I try to wow them with a new idea, like, here's fantastic, there's nothing like it. And people wonder, why can't I sell my new idea? How come the CEO doesn't value me? What's happening here? What's happening is that the only way to be really influential with people who are already influential is they have to see that you value their existing knowledge. If your idea invalidates what they already know, then they're not going to do it.
Wow.
And it's a very important thing to understand. I mean, nobody wants to be a senior beginner. Nobody wants to wake up and realize what they used to know is no longer valid. So they'll shoot holes in the new way and cling to the old way because it makes them smart. That's just human behavior. So if you're talking to someone in that powerful position, they better see their input in your solution. The best thing about your idea is it sounds a lot like their idea. And that's just how people are.
I'm still processing it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. But the people in those positions, that's what the deal is. And so the people who are successful and they're presenting their idea, they show, hey, let me show you. Let me back up. Let me show you the presentation that never works. Let's talk about the new way. First of all, the old way was bad. It was just dumb. Old way was bad. The new way is good because it's new. Start showing the features and benefits and whatever. People say, no, I don't want new. I want old. I like to put white out on the computer screen and do it the old way because I'm old. I mean, people don't really want that. What works is this. Let's talk about the new way. But first of all, let me show you how your existing knowledge, let me show you how what you already know right now is a lot like the new idea. They make every connection they can to show them how that person's existing knowledge, and the new idea are similar. Let me show you how what you're already thinking now is a lot like the new way. And once they establish that, then they go, okay, now you got that. Now you know that your existing knowledge is valuable. Let me show you how it's different and maybe better. Boom.
Wow.
And that is so important. And it is shocking the people who will not do that because they'd rather be right than successful. They'd rather be right than effective. You want to be right, you want the money. You want to be right, you want influence. You rather be right, you want to get the job. You want to be right or keep and attract members or employees. And most people want to be right.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it.
I want to be right.
You want to?
We all do.
Yeah. So what about there is such a big discussion and hype around hustle these days.
What's hustle? I heard you talking about that in the pre-interview.
Yeah, well,
every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling.
Oh man, you just should not. But no, it's.
Yeah. That's a path you should not do this thing. You can just strike that off. Cross that one out.
Cat Williams. Anyway.
I know. I love it, Blake. But no, it's true. It's like Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this stuff all the time. And
so what do we mean, hustle? We're not supposed to hustle.
The idea.
My coach in football said, hustle up, guys, all the time. Yeah, it's like
you're supposed to always be working, always be on, always be hustling, right?
Yeah.
You're always on. And now there's a big pushback on that. There's a counter reaction where people are now saying that maybe the hustle isn't so good for you. And maybe that there's a toxicity around hustle.
Because we burn out?
Yeah, because you burn out.
So what do we do, though?
I don't know.
Right,
That's what I was going to ask Garrison and find out what he had to say. Yeah.
Well, the thing about it is when it comes to the concept of hustle, yeah, a lot of people just develop a workaholic mentality. And what happens is they don't have a break. They actually go, I'm going to work 24/7. And not only they burn out is one thing, but I mean, it's imagine an engine that ran 24 hours a day. The chances it's going to have a problem is great. So anytime you're not taking a break or not shutting down, or not finding a way to rest or relax, I mean, you're going to have a problem. But the other thing that's important to understand is this, and not to get too deep here, but it's one thing to say, okay, well, hustle is good because you have to hustle, and then hustle is bad because too much hustle could burn you out. But you also have to take a look at what the motives are behind that. There are a lot of people that say hustle because they want their entire company to hustle. My message is hustle because I think you don't hustle enough. So I'm going to give the hustle message because I don't think you're hustling. On the other end is, wait a second, I don't want to hustle. Matter of fact, I don't want to hustle at all. Matter of fact, I don't want to hustle so much. I'm going to develop a theory that says hustling is not good.
Right. I like that.
So that's the thing. I mean, that could be developed by lazy people, or it could have a point.
You know what? I think that's it. I actually really think that that's what happens, though, a lot of the time, is that because people are just digging through and they're cherry picking any kind of research that will back up
their
an
theory.
Excuse for them to do anything. I won't lie. Whenever I find something that says that coffee or wine is good for me, I'm like, look at it. The research has spoken, But you never mind the fact you can probably find.
It's a party.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Right.
So.
But there's a lot of research on pork chops and chocolate and coffee and anything. There's like tons of research on that. And it's all done by the companies that manufacture that. I love how chocolate's good for you.
Nestle. Yes, right.
Remember the antioxidant thing with all the pomegranate juice?
It's true. And acai. Yeah.
Which is apparently worthless.
But chocolate has benefits. It has brain power benefits and things like that. But like anything else, I mean, you eat a little chocolate, you think better. You eat too much chocolate, you can't think, you can't get up.
Right. So
move. You just have
a happy medium, like everything in moderation, maybe.
Right. Hustle in moderation. Is that a book? Is that a book title?
But maybe it's always challenging your assumptions so that you can identify and test it for yourself, whether there's opportunity there or not.
What do you think? I'd like to hear your thoughts, Garrison, on failure.
It's an interesting thing about failure because recently a lot of people are having problems because they don't know about failure.
Because I kind of like it, believe it or not.
And they don't know it's
possible. I kind of like it, believe it or not. Because I feel like we test a lot of ideas in here, Kiki, when most of them never get on air.
That's true.
Right?
I mean, and some of them may never. Some of them might eventually one day. We'll see.
Well, but the truth about ideas is there are terrible ideas that are on the air, in place, in a menu. They're happening because the people are influential, push the terrible idea. You want to know, well, that's horrible. Why the hell are they doing that? It's because someone very influentially explained that and pitched the value of it. That's why a terrible idea is in place. So that's all about influence. But when it comes to failure, I mean, failure teaches us some very important things. But the main lesson failure teaches us is that it's possible to fail and then get up and move forward again. But I think the most important thing, I speak to some school systems, rooms full of school boards every now and then. We have the school board people and the superintendents and all that. And they have a concern that we have some teenagers now that we didn't teach them failure was possible. We taught them that life is like math. 1 + 2 = 3, that life works that way. And then what happens is they fail on the other side of puberty at 15. You got to put them on medication because they think their life is over and they're 15 years old. They thought that life was fair, and life isn't fair. They used to teach kids life wasn't fair when they were 6 years old. They don't do that anymore. And so it's a great concern that failure teaches us a lot. It's something that we learn how to make things better because, like you said, because you failed. I mean, you've heard of there's the old cleaning product called 409. Remember 409? Yeah. Well, that's because the first 408 didn't work. They called it.
Really? Is that a real story? Is that?
That's a real story.
Are you kidding?
And then actually, remember the other product called Fantastic? Yeah. Originally, they had a product that was just called Not Bad.
Stop it. Would you stop?
That's not true. I made that up. So, but really, the 409 story is true. The other one's not. But I think that we have to embrace it, but know that it's possible that things don't always go our way. And just because something didn't work out the way that you wanted it to, doesn't mean you can't keep moving along that path in a better way or switch paths or switch opportunities. It's kind of like this. I mean, if you don't have goals, you're just controlled by those who do. If you don't have goals, you're controlled by those who do. So you have your goal, you stay on your path. You may leave the path or go where, but you got to have goals. You have to keep moving. The people who are successful are the ones that kept moving forward. They always got better. And it was interesting because it was their idea of motivation was a continuous thought that you always took the next step, even after the bad step or the non-step, that their mindset was, what I am is a step taker. What I am is a person who actually moves forward. That's what I believe. And that mindset and that belief system drove people forward.
Okay. So why did you get an idea? And I wasn't able to read through the entire book before our interview, so I'm so sorry. But did you get an idea about more on that? Did they seem to have that mindset to start, or was that a habit that they developed, that step taker mentality? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Did they have that winning mindset to begin with, or was that something that they, through routine, established?
Well, the thing about it is that that kind of varied, but a lot of times it happened with an issue. Anything from childhood trauma to a big epiphany in their life where they made a decision. It could be they were inspired along the way. But what we found, and this is a very touchy topic, and I'll do the best I can with it, because this is the stuff that they don't want to tell you. This is what top 1% doesn't want to tell anybody. This is what PR people say, don't say this, right? And that is that they were driven sometimes by a feeling of inadequacy.
Yes. By
a feeling of a lack of self-worth, the feeling they weren't good enough. And that meant they had something to prove. A lot of people just simply had something to prove. And that was a common thread among a lot of successful people. If I had the percentages, I could find it, but I think it was like something more than 65 or 70% of the people in the 5,371 would say they probably, in general, overall, were more on the low self-esteem level than high self-esteem. Their belief was nothing they did was ever good enough, which fueled constant improvement.
That's
on top of that.
Yes, please continue.
But on top of that, they felt entitled. So the two things are important here was a sense of entitlement. Why not me? Why would they win? Why would it be them and not me? Why not me?
Oh my gosh.
Coupled with nothing I do is good enough. I can make it better and better and better and better. But that's why a lot of very successful people sometimes can be difficult to work with. You'll notice the most talented people you may work with at your job have some of the most difficult behavior. That talent and difficult.
No, I've never noticed the talent's a pain. People in the other room.
There's a reason for that, by the way.
All right.
I can do that too. I got a bell.
I know you do.
I have no bell.
We should have sent him. That's what we need to do is for our guests. We have to send people bells ahead of time. You know?
Association chat bells.
Yeah,
that's right. No, but that actually, that's great because I feel inadequate and entitled most of
I could see that.
It is fascinating though. I love hearing this because you really don't hear this anywhere, right? When you hear the stories about success, it's always about like, well, he got up at 4:30 every morning and was dedicated to making sure that he put in 1 hour on the treadmill and then read all of the papers for the next hour. And it
sounds like a lot of work.
Right.
It's like that. And there might be that work, but what's fueling it? What's underneath that? And if there's a sense that somebody's either meant to do something or why not me, and then they're also feeling like they've got something to prove or like it's never good enough and they're always striving, you can see how psychologically that would push people to greater and greater heights.
Totally.
It could.
Hey, Garrison, does hard work pay off really or not? Is that a myth?
No, hard work does pay off, but you have to work hard in the direction that'll get you where you want to go. A lot of people work extremely hard. Effort's great, but here's the thing. We found the most successful people didn't want to be in a fair fight. I could lose a fair fight. I want a lopsided battle I can win. Yeah. I don't need a fair fight. I can actually lose a fair fight. There's a 50% chance.
I want an imbalanced fight that is in my favor. Right. That's what I want.
Right. So they set themselves up with influence. They position themselves to be successful. So they set themselves up ahead of time. They put themselves in a position ahead of time. So here's a little tip for successful marketers out there and successful salespeople. And it's very simple. Go where people suck.
Go where people
aren't very good. I don't want to compete. Let me go into a market where people are terrible and I'm just going to go kill it. Let me find the market that is horribly, poorly served. And that's what Uber did. Uber said, wow, bad, stinky, horrible, nasty cabs. Bad. That guy lives in the cab. That's gross. That's mold. That's bad. Bad cab. Cranky limo drivers who hate the world, who tell you about
it's so true.
how they want to kill people. Psychotic limo drivers.
I had one of those. Told me about his life in Belarus.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
That's right.
Okay.
Oh yeah. The world's full of limo drivers that don't. Why are you here? If you hate America, why are you here? But the thing is that the reality is that someone came in. Uber's just a typical example. Many people have done what Uber did, but Uber's got the media. But they came in and said, "Hey, these people are terrible. Mm-hmm. Why don't we come in and do, I don't know, a little better than a mediocre job maybe, and we'll be fantastic." It is a lot easier to come into a market where people are failing and just dominate that market. Coming into a market that's highly competitive, there's a lot of people there. There's a chance to lose. It's like people looking for jobs. Well, I don't want to work for this manufacturing company. I want to work for this well-known sexy company. When they go work for the sexy company, their friend went to work for the manufacturing company is literally CEO in 11 years. And this person is still in that big company fighting with all the people.
So how do we tie this? How do we tie this back to associations?
Well, yeah, no, I think it's interesting because in a lot of cases, there are a number of ways where you can do that. But I think that for me, what I'm listening to and applying right now is maybe if you have that smaller pond, being the big fish is a little bit easier, like to maybe start
Absolutely.
there, right? Instead of jumping into the big pond. For associations, though, I think that when they're looking at how they are speaking out to their members, and it's in every single industry. There's an association for everything, as you know.
Right.
When they're speaking out to their members and they're guiding them on how to be successful in the future, maybe it's some of this advice that's not so obvious that, they should be sharing. I don't know. What do you think, Garrison? You speak to
these guys every year.
A ton, all the time. Every month, every week. Sometimes I speak to associations. And I think the key for associations is look at what is not working around you. Look at the people who are a member of your association are a member of other associations. What is it they specifically don't like about those other associations? Not just yours.
Oh, that's good.
What do they not like about those other associations?
Good. Yeah. And
take a look at that information, and then you say, okay, well, great. Let's do that. Let's build off of what we like. Let's create whatever that looks like. Let's go the opposite direction. There are lots of basics. As I said, you got to have, good. If you don't have good food and a good speaker, you have a problem. But it's a lot deeper than that. I've heard people say, well, I don't like this location. They keep coming back to this location. I've got to take 2 plane flights to get there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I live in a major hub city on purpose so I can travel, they say. So if I'm living in a major hub city, why am I taking 2 planes to get to, and there's some beautiful places. I speak all over the world. Okay. And there's some wonderful places, but I've been to that place.
So,
where, a lot of times they couldn't get the speaker they wanted because the speaker couldn't get from Dallas to, that weird place somewhere in Iowa, 9 hours from an airport that nobody can get to.
Maybe considering your location. So I want to try to bring this home before we round out our discussion today. It's been really interesting to find out some of these things, some of the psychology behind success that I never really thought about before. But when you're looking at what you're doing in the future and you're looking at 2019, would you mind, and I'm going to ask to get a little bit personal what's one of your goals? What's something that you're going to be working on for 2019?
Well, what we do at my organization is we look at what the biggest problems are that people are having a hard time solving and the ones that aren't being solved very well. We think the biggest problem in the future is finding and keeping employees. There are companies that are going to go out of business in 2019 because they don't have enough people. Yeah. You got 1 million people looking for 7 million jobs. It's not working. There are companies that need all kinds of employees, and it's everything from a forklift driver to a welder to tech people. It's interesting. It's a really a problem. And I've spoke to grocery store associations that say that they have people that work there for a day. They won't even work longer than a day. They can't keep the employees. So we're looking at culture. We're looking at, you can call it employee engagement, but do employees feel valuable? And is there something sticky about that culture that makes them want to be there? Are you taking a real look at what people believe a career is supposed to be? Will they stay? Right now, you can sell packages for a day for $80 on Amazon. You don't have to have a job these days. And that's the issue. You have people who say this, and I'll do an impression. I don't see myself working every day. I think I'm going to work. I don't see myself as consistently going to work. I want to work a little bit. Then I want to maybe do some snowboarding and then go back and work. And the temporary agencies are flush. The temp people have all kinds of people. And then all of a sudden the company says, hey, I love all the 70 temps. We'll take them. And none of them take the job.
Really?
None of them.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So it is a big issue. There are people who've decided that their destiny is not going to be committing to an organization or a company.
Can
and
this
I think
last?
we have to.
Can this last?
Well, right now, those jobs will be going overseas. Right now, the jobs are going, they can't find people. I can't name any companies right now, but I have clients. As of this year, I've now spoken to all the Fortune 500, everyone. And I can't name them, but they're literally finding people in other countries, teaching them English to come take the jobs. Or they're sending the job totally overseas.
Wow, that sounds like
I will say this: there are welders right now who make $150,000.
Well, that's the thing, okay, and and now I know we're veering off, but that's the thing about association chat. We're gonna have to have another one, obviously, right. But it's something that I do hear from a lot of associations that deal with the trades and deal with people in manufacturing and all different levels, because it's interesting. All these people are saying they want to be coders when they come out of school. And yet, they're scraping by on $35,000 a year jobs. A welder coming out of high school is going to be making $150K.
And an underwater welder.
Right. It's crazy. I know.
Double that.
We'll add danger to it.
I have my brochure right here.
Okay. So thank you, Garrison. When people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
They can go to garrisonwynn.com, GarrisonWynn.com. And also you can just Google Garrison Wynn. I'm all over the internet.
I think he has
go to YouTube.
He has a book that I put up on the screen.
He does have a book. Blake, thank you for putting that up on the screen. Garrison, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone else who is watching Association Chat with us today. I want you to come back and check us out next time. Before we close out, there's a special in-person event coming up on January 17th, 2019 called Be a Creator Without the Risk that I'm doing in collaboration with Adele Sears of When and Now. For more information about that, visit theassociationchat.com/events. And all right, Blake, let's get Margot to close us out.
Let's do it, Margot.
Thanks for listening to Association Chat, produced by Amplified Growth and Human Factor. For more information on Amplified Growth, go to amplifiedgrowth.net. And for more information on making podcasts for your association, go to Human Factor at humanfactor.net. To hear past episodes, go to the Association Chat YouTube channel and subscribe. See you soon!